Welcome to the Press Box Podcast. I'm Ralph Miranda. I'll be joined by my co-host Joseph Miranda. Today, our guest will be Coach Jim Gaylor, former defensive coordinator at Maryville High School. Remember, Press Box Podcast is brought to you by Bonus Room Art, www.bonusroomart.com. And the Press Box Podcast can be heard on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast feed. It can also be heard on the Fox Sports Knoxville podcast feed by searching for that name. And you can follow us on the Fox Sports Knox Twitter feed as well. Okay, as promised, we're joined now by Coach Jim Gaylor in the studio. And Coach, good to have you here.
Well, it's good to be here, Ralph.
Thanks for agreeing to join us. And Coach, I know you're a Tennessee alum, and we would be remiss if we didn't start off by talking about all the wonderful things that are going on at Tennessee these days with regard to the football program and all the rumors about did we see John Gruden or did we not see John Gruden. So you go to most of the games, if not all of them. So what's your take on the program right now and what's going on there with the coaching change?
Well, being a former coach, I'm not ever going to be very critical of coaches coming in, leaving, or even play calling and that sort of thing. I'm not sure. Obviously, I don't think Gruden's coming. He's got a very good job, and he hadn't been involved in college in quite some time. And so I would be shocked if he came. Now, if he came, I would be happy. I'm going to support whoever. I was actually at UT in the 70s and was part of a coaching change with Bill Battle and Coach Majors, two completely different types of coaches. I was a very big fan of Johnny Majors as a coach when I was a fan watching him play. I thought it was important that Tennessee have a coach that had ties there and had blood in the game or skin in the game, so to speak. And so, Fulmer came in and took that job. I got that job, and so I became a Phil Fulmer fan. And, I think a lot of people are disappointed in Derek Dooley, but at least while he was here, I was a Derek Dooley fan. And he's landed on his feet with the Cowboys, so he's done all right too. As far as who comes in, there's enough rumors out there that you could probably name 10 or 15 people. The latest one I've heard is it Frost? Is that
right? Scott Frost.
Scott Frost is the one I've heard more today, just driving around town. But whoever they get, they need to take their time and make a good decision. I think this is a very important decision to make because the program is better off than it was 5 years ago from talent standpoint and those kind of things. It has been a very frustrating year, and I think it started last year with the injuries and the loss to South Carolina that culminated with the Vanderbilt loss. I think that's when it really started going south for Butch Jones. But he is leaving it better off than it was from player standpoint and from boosters and from crowd. I mean, Saturday in the rain, I don't know what what the actual attendance was there, but I was pleasantly surprised at how many people were at that game. Now, they left a little bit after halftime, and I don't blame them for that. I was there, and I left after the third quarter, but it was very bad conditions. But the crowd was into the game, and I think it affected how we played in the first half. So, again, the program's better off than it was, so I think this is a hire that maybe could really help us get it back to the Coach Majors and Coach Fulmer days.
Well, you basically just said, obviously, you would pretty much support whoever they bring in, and you have been in the past. But you personally, being a coach, what qualifications would you like to see? Would you like to be somebody from the college ranks, or do you think that it's okay if a guy comes in from the NFL or something like that?
I'm more interested not in where they came from, but what kind of coach they are.
Right.
I played under a very disciplined coach in high school. Coach Majors was very, very disciplined and tough. And I want somebody that is that kind of coach. I don't want to criticize Butch Jones, but I think our philosophy was more finesse with him, and I would rather have somebody like Fulmer that wanted to line up and win a game in the fourth quarter when you got a lead by just running the football, getting first downs, things like that. And I think sometimes it rubs off on the defense too. If you're a finesse offense, all you're doing is practicing against finesse offenses on defense, and you end up more of a, not a physical team that wants to stop the run. I want to be able to run the ball, stop the run, and throw it well enough to move the chains, but not, sling it around 50 times. I'm not, even when Peyton Manning was here, our best teams was not when he was throwing it 40 or 50 times. If you look at his stats, if he threw it over 40 times, they lost quite a few of those games. If he was throwing it 25 to 30 times and they were running the ball, they were better. So I'm more of a philosophy look for than a college coach or a pro coach or anything like that.
Right.
But you brought up a number of things there that I think are interesting. One, I'm with you. I'm an old school guy. Run the ball, stop the run, and that's how you win games. But today, hasn't the game changed? In other words, you don't see many coaches that have that philosophy anymore. They all want to, the big term now is RPO, run pass option, get on the edge, that sort of thing. And then also the comment about disciplined coaches. Are the kids today, the 18 to 21-year-old kids, will they be receptive to that kind of? I mean, you and I were when we played, but today I don't know if they are.
Well, I think you have to balance how you discipline and how you relate to your kids. You're correct. I coached 36 years, and the kids changed drastically from from when I played to when I first got into it to when I retired about 3 years ago. They'll accept hard coaching if you don't grade them or just constantly nag at them all the time. And I learned, and I was probably too rough at Clinton when I first coached there as a head coach because I just thought the culture needed to change a little bit. And then when I came to Maryville and you got players there that want to be there, that have tradition, and as I went through Maryville, I learned that if you're just yelling and screaming all the time, you're really not getting anything across to the kids because, they're just, well, there he goes again.
Yeah.
So I think if you tone it down and just have a few of those moments, then they understand, we're not getting the job done or we're not doing it the right way or whatever, and it makes it more important and you get across better to the kids that we need to step it up. Than if you're just yelling and screaming at them all the time, then they don't really know, there he goes again.
Mm-hmm.
So kids nowadays, they're different, but they're different at different schools. I helped out at Clinton a little bit this year, and the kids at Maryville and the kids at Clinton are really quite a bit different from their practice habits to their playing habits to how they've gone through tough seasons and things like that. So you have, as a coach, one of your biggest jobs is figuring out, how to handle each individual kid. And, you can't just yell and scream at all of them because some of them just won't play if you do that. So part of it's learning how to do that. And I think you can be tough on a kid if you show them that you care about them and you just, it's not every day. As soon as you see them, you're fussing at them or whatever.
Right.
So, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. You did. Well, let's talk a little bit about you now. You grew up in Nashville. That's where you went to high school. So take us through your early days. I mean, did you play all three sports? Is that what you did most? I mean, I know you're my age, so we didn't have video games and all that stuff. So we were out playing a lot of sports.
We had them, but it was like Pong or something.
That's right. That's right. That got boring pretty quick. So take us through those days. How did you? What was growing up in Nashville like?
Well, first off, my dad was a high school coach,
okay.
And he was a All-American at Tennessee Tech, and actually played against Tennessee's national championship team in the 50s.
All right.
And him being a coach, a football coach, and actually a track coach, he actually coached girls softball or girls basketball at his first job in Oneida. But anyway, being in that atmosphere, we were a sports family. So to me, and I still feel this way pretty much, that whatever season it is, that's the sport I like the most. I don't like places where, coaches try to get you just to play one sport or whatever, because I was never – no coach ever told me, all right, you don't need to do this so you can be better at that. We were always playing. Now, I wasn't very good in basketball. My last year in basketball was ninth grade. And that team, it was junior high back then, and that team, every one of us played football. So we all got to play a lot because everybody fouled out a lot because we played basketball like football. But that was my last basketball experience other than like church league basketball and things like that. But so in high school, I went to Overton High School in Nashville and played baseball and football. And Coach Nick Koutras was my football coach, and very well thought of. He's passed now, but very well thought of. In Nashville, coaching at Overton, and Coach Tucker was my baseball coach. And those two guys were completely different. I got, one thing about playing sports, you get to, more than likely, you're going to play and learn a lot of things from different kinds of people and learn how to treat people different ways and how to respond to people different ways. And Coach Tucker was really laid back as a baseball coach. Coach Koutras was really hard-nosed as a football coach. That's the two sports I played. I felt they didn't conflict. My parents wasn't going to let me play through. They said, you pick two. They should have let me play basketball. I probably wouldn't play that much. I went to all the basketball games, so I was always there. So I might as well have been playing. And then one of my best friends was a wrestler. So I was a sports family, influenced by my dad more than anything. My mother was actually a really good basketball player. I don't think she played past high school, but she was a really good basketball player as well. I grew up a Vanderbilt fan, bless my heart, because we got free tickets. The coaches in Nashville got free tickets to the Vandy games. And so I was a Vandy fan all the way up until I signed with UT. And an interesting story, at least it is to me, is I had season basketball tickets at Vanderbilt my senior year in high school, and I'd already signed with UT to play football, but I was at all the Vandy basketball games cheering for them. Now, that was pretty much the last time I ever cheered for Vanderbilt. But anyway, baseball, football, played summer league baseball. There's hundreds of travel teams now, but back when I was playing, and maybe when you played, if you were on a travel team, you were pretty good because there wasn't 10 in every town. There was one or maybe two in each town. And Nashville's a big city, so I played travel baseball from the time I was 13 and played football. Sometimes they conflicted, but not much. The conflict would come if a team I was playing on was really good in the summer, and we would be going into the summer tournaments, the Southeast regions, the World Series kind of things, and football practice was starting up. So there was where the conflict was, and what actually ended up happening was that conflict caused me to become just a kicker because I missed some practice, and because of that, and ended up just concentrating on kicking. And we might get into that a little bit more later, but anyway, just a fun time. I got to see a lot of the country, even as a kid, playing because of baseball, not because of football. Football, you usually stay right where you're at. Right. But baseball, you got to travel quite a bit. And I was fortunate to play on some teams that went to Georgia, went to Texas, went to Florida, and played those kind of games.
What would you say? What would you classify Overton as at the time you were there? More of a football school or baseball school, as they were known, or what they excelled at? You think?
Well, we were good at both.
Okay.
My senior year in baseball, we lost one game. It just happened to be the one that knocks you out of it was the sub-state.
Right.
Okay.
Now, back then, you didn't play 35 games like you do now. I think we were like 20-1 that year. And you didn't have 6 or 8 pitchers that, they take you out after 5 innings or whatever. There was 2 of us that pitched every game.
No advanced metrics. Right?
The other pitcher that pitched on our team started 10 games, and I relieved for him one time, and I started 11 games, and he never relieved for me. So we had 2 pitchers on that team, basically. And we were lucky. We played Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so we weren't playing, 5 games in a week, or we'd had to have some more pitching. But we were good at both. In football, I don't know if you guys realize this, and we're jumping a lot of rabbits here, which I hope's okay.
It's fine.
I played against the Bristol team that was supposed to be like the best team in the United States in 1973, I think it was, or it was the fall of '72 actually. There was about 6 or 8 of them that went to major colleges afterwards. So we went to the semifinals that year. Now back then you only played like 3 playoff games.
Right, yeah.
And this was the semis, and we went up to Bristol, and that was, as a 17-year-old, that was a scary place to go because it's a castle.
Right.
And you go up there, and it's cold. It was Thanksgiving weekend, actually.
Yeah.
We had Thanksgiving dinner that week at Morrison's Cafeteria in Knoxville, heading to Bristol from Nashville. The next year, we lost in the semifinals also. So we were really good in football. Overton won the state finally a few years later, beat Andy Kelly's team, actually, from Chattanooga. And we were good in baseball my senior year, really good my senior year, pretty good my junior year. I did not play. Back then you couldn't sub. You couldn't like have free substitution in baseball. So no coach would let everybody play. One guy had to stay on the bench in case somebody got hurt. You could throw them in the last inning so you wouldn't have 8 players out there or whatever. I was the guy. I think I got along with the coach. We were good buddies, not buddies, but we had a good relationship, let's put it that way. And so I was the guy that never got to play his sophomore year. And that was really hard. That was probably the hardest single thing that ever happened from an athletic standpoint to me, other than maybe missing a field goal when you don't need to miss it, or losing that last game in high school that I got the loss in that game. But I didn't get to play until my junior year, and I was a pretty good high school player, baseball-wise, a pretty good pitcher. I mean, I'd had success in the summer and things like that. So that was tough. My junior year, I pitched early in the season and pitched really, really well. But we had like a senior staff. I had two really good senior pitchers, and so it was kind of like the next year when nobody else got to pitch but me and the other guy. I was kind of the guy that never got to pitch until really, really late in the year, and I ended up pitching some like the last couple of weeks of the season, and then I pitched like 4 straight games.
Yeah.
And then my senior year, I got, like I said, I was one of 2 pitchers on our team that pitched all the time. So we were good at both. Players on our baseball team, there was at least, I can think of, center fielder played football, first baseman played football, the second baseman played football, third baseman played football, the catcher played football. So everybody played, and we were a big school, so it wasn't any reason that we didn't have enough people to choose from. It was just that's the way it was back in those days.
Right.
You played a lot of sports, and in the off season wasn't as important. In Nashville, you couldn't even have spring practice in football. There was no spring practice, so there was no conflict with baseball and football,
right?
Because it was illegal. But they didn't let anybody in Nashville have spring practice, and of course the football coaches thought that was a disadvantage because other areas of the state had spring practice, but we didn't. But it allowed us to play and not feel pressure to not play. So
all right. So having said that, take us into your, I guess, senior year, I guess the end of your senior year as you're heading into college, having played both sports in high school. What was your mindset, I guess, as you were approaching graduation, and what went into the decision of not only where to go to college, but what sports to play in college?
Well, number one, I wanted to play both.
Okay.
Can I go back to
absolutely.
how come I became a kicker?
Sure, I was going to ask you that.
Okay, go ahead.
Get there, but
That'll lead into this story.
I've always wondered about that. So
because it's a pretty neat story. Number one, I would. My dad coached at TPS, Tennessee Preparatory School. That's where he went to school. He was an orphan.
Oh, okay.
And that was a school where orphans went. And he was born in Stinking Creek, which is here in East Tennessee. I know where that is. Yeah, but he ended up there and then went back to coach there. Well, anyway, we lived on campus, so we were there with however many students were there. That's where I went to school my first 6 years. My mom was my 5th grade teacher, actually, as well. My dad was my driver's ed teacher, but I went to Overton. We moved off campus, and that's how I ended up at Overton. But anyway, I would play football out in the backyard by myself. And sometimes with friends, but a lot of times by myself.
I did that too. Yeah.
And so I was quarterback, receiver, kicker, running back, whatever. Just imagine a 12-year-old out there playing football by himself, 11, 12-year-old. Well, whoever I was it'd be two teams playing. It could be Kansas City Chiefs versus whoever, Green Bay Packers or whatever. So let's just use Kansas City Chiefs because I know Jan Stenerud was the kicker for Kansas City Chiefs. If that team was kicking or had the ball and was needing a field goal at the end somewhere during the game, I was soccer style. If it was, let's tell you, the Philadelphia Eagles, because I know, isn't that where Rick Dempsey kicked?
He was at the Saints when he kicked
the Saints. Okay, well, whatever.
Straight on.
Say it's a straight on kicker, then
yeah.
I kicked straight on for that team. So I learned to kick out in the backyard by myself. It wasn't soccer; it was like a Russian sport back then.
It still is, but we were.
Well, anyway, so I would be whoever was on the teams, So it didn't take too long to figure out I was a better soccer kicker than a straight on kicker, at least from that standpoint. And well, anyway, I went to, just to get this story moving, when I went to McMurray Junior High, was my first public school. I played football my 9th grade year. I played like midget leagues my 7th and 8th grade year, and I finally played school ball my 9th grade year. Well, there was a kicker there that was pretty good for junior high, and we kicked extra points at the junior high level, but I was like the backup, and I played like center on offense and linebacker on defense, and so I never really got to kick any for them. Well, the break I got was that he transferred before he went to Overton. Well, somewhere in the meantime, I had played a little quarterback when I was younger, but when I went to Overton as a sophomore, I played quarterback on the JV team and played linebacker. And we were practicing. I really wasn't kicking because at the time, when we first started practice that year, the kicker on our team at Overton, who was an offensive guard, but he weighed like 150 pounds, just to tell you how little some of the kids were back then. But anyway, he was a really good kicker, like an all-Nashville kind of kicker, and so I didn't, I wasn't that interested in kicking. I was playing quarterback and linebacker. And Coach Kuchers made you play both sides of the ball. There wasn't any, okay, you do this, and that's all you do. And so I practiced with those. Well, it's like the first week of the season, and we were practicing, and we went down to the game field to work on special teams. And I'm going to mention this name, Coach Carter, who was Ronnie Carter, who ran the TSSAA for a long time. Right. He was one of our coaches at Overton. He was a wrestling coach and a football coach. And well, anyway, being the quarterback, and we were going out to work on special teams, Coach said, all right, you go down on that end of the field and hold for field goals, told me. And he told some other quarterbacks, you go down on that end and hold for whoever's kicking down on that end. Well, I went down to that end, and when I got there, I don't remember which coach it was. It might have been Coach Kuchers. Said, are you here to hold or to kick? I said, well, I'll kick. He'd sent me down to hold.
Right.
I said, well, I'll kick, because I had kicked as a freshman. And so I kicked that day, and I ended up that year being the kickoff guy, because my leg was a little stronger than the senior that hit like 90% of his field goals, but he didn't kick the ball in the end zone. Right. So I ended up kicking off that year and actually attempting some long field goals when they thought it was too far for him to kick. And long field goals back then might be 40 yards because there just wasn't much kicking going on in the 70s.
Right.
And so that's how I ended up a high school kicker. Is I was supposed to go down there and hold, and I told them, no, I wanted to try some kicking. And I held some too, but I ended up being the kickoff guy and the long field goal guy that year, and kicked a couple of field goals. And then he graduated, and so my junior and senior year, I ended up being the main kicker. And played in some unbelievable games. We played in some games. We played at Vanderbilt like 3 times while I was there, 5 times counting, 4 times, I think. A couple of regular season games and a couple of clinic bowls. Back then, the clinic bowl was not the championship game. It was the first playoff game in Nashville.
Okay.
Between whatever the 2 best teams in Nashville went to Vanderbilt and played in the clinic bowl.
Interesting.
And so I actually got to play in front of, we played Father Ryan in front of 20,000 a couple of times at Vanderbilt. We were drawing more than Vanderbilt did, which is something I'm pretty proud of, actually, since I don't like Vanderbilt anymore. But anyway, that's my kicking story from high school. I've got a piece of Vanderbilt's scoreboard in my house, in my mom's house now, where we kicked extra points, and there wasn't nets back then, and I kicked an extra point that's banked up against the scoreboard and knocked knocked a hole in. It's like plastic or whatever, but it's pretty special when you're a high school kid.
Sure.
Somebody brings you, here's what came off the scoreboard when you kicked that extra point. So it was a fun event to play down there in Nashville. We were very good and played in front of some good crowds and won some big games. And unfortunately, we weren't able to win the state, but we got to the semis twice. And I started getting offers my senior year. And I remember sitting in health class, and this is right when the scholarship limit went from unlimited, which I think is what Coach Majors pulled off up at Pittsburgh when he first went up there, to 30. I mean, they didn't like trim it down slowly. It went from unlimited to like 30.
Right.
Now, I remember my health teacher saying, Jimmy, you might be affected by this because somebody may not want to give a kicker a scholarship. And so Vanderbilt had recruited me longer than Tennessee, but Tennessee was known for their special teams, their kickers. Their Coach Caffigo was the guy most known for down there, and the kickers were all really good. And even though most of the kickers at UT to that point were position players that became kickers, I think I was the first actual kicker that got a scholarship to be just a kicker. And I think they wanted me to kick and punt. I was a decent high school punter, but after watching my roommate J.C. Cokewood, who's got relatives still kicking,
right, had him for years.
Yes, after seeing him punt, I had no business even. They should never even thought of me as a punter. I mean, I could punt okay, but not at their level. But anyway, I went to UT on a scholarship and to play, but wherever I was going, and Vanderbilt would have done the same thing. I wanted to play both sports, and being a kicker, it wasn't going to be that big a deal that I would go play baseball in the spring. So that was always in mind. I probably liked individually baseball a little better because I was a pitcher and an infielder and more involved than just kicking. But like I told you earlier, I like whatever season it is. If I had season basketball tickets at UT for a long time because I like whatever sport it happens to be in. So, but individually, I probably liked baseball a little better. Coaching, I probably like football a little better because I think there's more things, more strategy, and more, to such a large number of kids, and you have to work through who ought to be playing out of these 100 kids instead of out of these 30. Which reminds me, baseball, you had to cut, which is the least. I mean, it's awful. You're ruining some people's lives according to their parents. And you're not trying to, you don't want to, but you are. And so I think that's why coaching, I like football more because everybody can play, and you can find out real quick who needs to be playing. You don't make every right decision, but you can pretty much tell somebody's working to get better and wanting to play football because it's not a sport that you ought to be doing unless you love it.
Right.
I mean, it's just too risky. It's too hard. It's hot. And when you're having to do all the practice and stuff. And anyway, I don't know how that rabbit got jumped.
Well, let me ask you this about kicking. At the time, high school and college, what did you prefer? What did you use more, the soccer style kicking or straight on?
Oh, I was, when I went to high school, junior high as a ninth grader, I was already soccer. It was soccer style. Now I can still kick straight. I can kick straight on probably now better than I can kick soccer.
I was going to say
because of my knees and stuff.
It seems like nowadays, I mean, obviously everybody kicks soccer style, but back then it seemed like you had a lot more straight on kickers.
Soccer was again.
Were you on
an influence?
Were you on the kind of the cutting edge there? Like, were you one of the only guys doing that back then, or is it kind of even?
Well, if you look at the pros, and y'all are smarter than me, probably remember things better than I do. But in the '70s. You had Stenerud, you Premium.
Right.
And you probably named 3 or 4 others.
George Blanda, he was a little before that.
He was straight on.
He was straight on. The majority of them were still straight on in the late 60s and early 70s. Maybe, you're a kid. You're influenced by all sorts of things. I used to try to pitch like certain people, which was stupid. You should just pitch like you pitch.
Yeah.
but I'm sure I was influenced by, Miami that few years in they were like 17-0. They were like the only undefeated
Right.
team. And Stenner and Upremium was their kicker, right? I actually kicked it at Florida against his, I guess it was his brother. It was his son or brother, I don't know. He kicked for Florida back in the 70s. So probably influenced by just seeing it on TV. And, the soccer style guys seem to kick it further than the straight on guys.
But they're not as accurate. Would you agree with that? Longer distances potentially.
Yeah.
Not now, but maybe initially. When it first started,
Right.
probably, you're probably correct on that. Because them them straight on kickers cheated. They had them square toed shoes. You can't get a soccer shoe that makes it where you hit it just right every time.
That's true.
Anyway, that's
well. I got to tell a story on you, and I never did get this good answer, but I want this answer. You and I play a lot of golf together, and I know that you don't like to play golf in the rain. Nobody does, but it really affects you a lot. Okay, so I think I asked you one time on the golf course, "Hey, didn't you ever have to kick in the rain?" So how do you mesh those two? I mean, you did have to kick in the rain, right?
Well, at UT we had turf, even though it was more like concrete at that time, or like a rug in your house. So it wasn't really very. I slipped a few times kicking, but I can't remember slipping all that much. But the only time you played on grass was like up in Kentucky at Lexington, and it never rained up there. It was too cold to rain. It was going to snow before it's going to rain.
Right.
Because it was awful up there. I'm trying to think. We didn't play. I remember my freshman year going to LSU, and Townsend was our kicker at UT
Ricky
that
Townsend.
year. I was a freshman. He was a senior. But I went on trips, and all I usually did was hit kickoffs for the kickoff return guys.
Right.
In that grass, they had grass at LSU, and I remember everybody was mad at me before warm-ups was over. For some reason, I'd kicked so much off turf that I might have forgot how to kick off grass because I was kicking off balls. They were going everywhere. I mean, you had a better chance. The cheerleader had a better chance to catch one. These were just in warm-up, so it didn't really matter, but I remember LSU being grass at the time. Kentucky was grass. I can't remember. We played Alabama and Auburn always in Birmingham at that time at Legion Field, so it was turf. Florida was turf. Memphis was grass. We played Ole Miss at Memphis some. I don't ever remember having too many rain games.
I see.
So it really wasn't. We didn't like them. You don't like them as a quarterback or a kicker or receiver. The only people like rain. The people all excited Saturday coming out of the locker room at UT, and UT wasn't too excited after about the first 3 or 4 minutes of the second half, but there were linemen and defensive guys.
Right.
Not really the DBs, mostly the front seven kind of guys kind of like to get it. And it's not near as fun now, I wouldn't think, to play as it would be if you was playing on grass, sliding all over the place.
Well, that's what games should be. And like you said, when we played, it wasn't the turf they had today. It was like a carpet.
Oh, yeah, I'm telling you, I've got,
they
pulled up that first turf at UT, and I've got a little piece of it that, UT made some money selling to everybody. I think my parents bought it. I didn't. But anyway, it's like that right there.
And they didn't have those things they have now that you can put on your arms to prevent rug
We wore
burns.
knee pads and elbow pads. We'd wear elbow pads or some of them.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, Bonus Room Art. Bonus Room Art is a newly formed art company specializing in sports and movie art. To learn more about Bonus Room Art, visit bonusroomart.com, where you can buy Jacqueline prints of numerous types of artwork. If you're a sports fan, numerous sports prints for sale. A movie fan, Indiana Jones. There's a great print for sale there as well. To get those at the store, you can order a commissioned artwork, a personalized custom artwork, by visiting the Commissions tab and filling out a commissions form. And that's the first step into you owning your own piece of custom artwork. And finally, the contact page. Contact Bonus Room Art. Any questions, comments, anything else you want to learn, you can do that right there as well. And now, back to Coach Jim Gaylor. So I want to ask you this. Now, when you look at kicking from the college game to the pro game, the way I see it is there's a big drop-off in kicking in college than there is in the pros. Like in the pros, you have kickers that you're pretty much expected to make 40-plus yard field goals, 40 to 50 yards. It's almost automatic. And you see a lot of kickers get recycled, like guys that played for 5 and 6 teams. They're always you see the same guys. What do you think's the biggest reason why you don't see more new kickers every year coming in from college that have the ability to kick at the pro level? Because it seems like there's a disparity.
That's a good question. I've not really thought about that a whole lot. I know when I kicked, we got to kick off a tee. High school kids can kick off a little tee.
Right.
And when I was in college, you got to kick off a tee. And kickers got so good that one of the things as far as how long they could kick it and stuff, one of the reasons I think college went to no tee is because people were kicking 60-yard field goals or had a chance to,
right,
and those kind of things. And so at first I thought that the kids kicking off tees had a disadvantage going into the pros because they were having to kick off the ground.
Right.
I mean, it's different leg swing. There's a whole lot different to it. I never liked kicking off the ground that much. It's hard to get the ball up in the air quick and things like that. So initially, I always thought, well, that's why. The ones that have been there, have been doing it forever, and they're good at it. Then, these young guys, these new guys coming from college have a disadvantage. Now it's really, I don't know if it's loyalty to the kickers that's there now or just the certainty. I mean, there's a guy that's going to hit 90% of his kicks from inside 50. You're not fooling with somebody else until that shows that he can't do that. So what you'll see is a few college kickers getting on some teams, and if they do okay, then they're going to be the next group that somebody's going to trade for or get and keep that cycle going. It's not like everybody has 4 defensive backs starting from now 5 or 6 sometimes playing on the way everybody throws it. But each team just needs one kicker.
Sure.
And so
it's all about the coaches feeling comfortable, right?
Yeah, that's definitely it. Right. And just the fact that they're so good at it.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. I wish I was half as good as some of those. I wasn't as accurate as I need to be. I always was strong enough, and my kickoffs were always solid and good and things like that. You don't have to worry about where they're going. You just kick it.
Right.
And but I think just like you said, the coach's confidence in the fact that they don't pay them tons anyway, so it's not like you're spending whatever your salary number is that you have to on kickers. Now there's a few that are getting paid quite well because they've been doing it a long time. Right. But I think that's more of it than anything. Kickers get some kickers get a bad rap for being kind of out there. Right. And if you've got a kicker that you're comfortable with, and you got this guy over here that you're not real sure if how he's going to react with the team and things like that. I always told people one of the reasons I played baseball was so I wouldn't be considered just a kicker. Right. I actually, a little fun note, I actually caught a 2-point play against Ole Miss in a game, and I was so excited about that just because now I can say, look, I can catch the ball, I can do this, and I can do that. It wasn't a called play. It was a fire that, again, I was supposed to be blocking, but there wasn't nobody there to block, so I decided just to kind of.
And they threw it to you.
Yeah, they threw it to me.
There you go. Well, how did you get into coaching? In other words, like obviously your dad was a coach, and that had a big influence on you. But when your playing days were done at Tennessee and you graduated, did you know right then you wanted to be a coach, or did it take a while for that to kind of come to you?
Well, as a collegiate, as a kid playing college ball, most college kids want to go play in the professional ranks. Right. As mentioned earlier, I was not accurate enough to be a professional kicker, and I don't think I ever really was ever out there wanting to do that. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it, and playing at Neyland Stadium and running through the tee and being on a team that's we weren't great, but we were good most of the time, and that was fun. But baseball, I was more involved pitching, sometimes playing infield. And so my dream was to be a professional baseball player. And I was in general business in college because my cousin was when he went to college. And he played basketball at Belmont. And I thought, well, he played basketball at Belmont. He was in business administration. So and I saw him having fun. Didn't remember him studying a whole lot. So I thought, well, that's what I'll do. So anyway, it wasn't until I realized really late in my career that I may not have a chance. And I thought I still had a shot at baseball for, even through my senior year. I played an extra year at UT. Actually, my 5th year at UT was on a baseball scholarship because I got hurt and didn't play one year, so I had an extra year. And Coach Wright, I was fortunate that I pitched well enough that he gave me that extra year, because you don't get many full scholarships in baseball. They just split them up.
Right.
You don't get many, so they split them all up. But
Right.
anyway, I got to do that, and so even my senior year at UT, I still had dreams of playing baseball. Now, I didn't get drafted. I had an opportunity to go play up in New England somewhere just as a free agent or just a tryout or whatever. But finally at that point, I thought, I'm ready to do something else. But unfortunately, I didn't do the school stuff correctly. So I got an interim teacher's license and got a job. We're probably running out of time, so I don't have time to tell
plenty
the
of time.
story.
Go ahead.
But I was I mentioned my cousin Tony Cross, who coached women at Belmont, played at Belmont, actually coached with Pat Summit as a grad assistant a couple of years. But anyway, he's who I was kind of my hero growing up. He's like 4 years older than me. He was at my house in Nashville, even though he's from Carnes, all the time because he was at Belmont, and then I was at his house when I was up here at his parents' house doing my laundry and stuff when I was here. But anyway, I was kind of doing what he did, and I got fortunate that I'd had 2 classes, a psychology class and a psychological statistics class. At that time, there must have been a shortage of teachers or something that allowed me to get an interim certificate. Now, I had to keep going to school and to work on a real certificate.
Right.
But I got a job at Oneida right out of college and went to school. And actually, the one smart thing I did was that I started taking graduate classes to get my teaching certificate and my master's degree. So I didn't have to take undergraduate classes. So I was actually working on my master's while I was working on being a teacher.
Right.
And by the time I got all the classes done, I had taught enough that they waived I didn't even have to do student teaching, because I don't guess you need to do student teaching if you've been in the classroom for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And so I got all that waived, and Dad was my biggest influence. Being a competitor and loving sports was probably the other reason I wanted to go into coaching. If I can't play, what else? I guess I could announce, and I actually did that some when I was at Clinton. But it was just a way to stay involved in sports and with young people and competition. That's one of the things I miss more than anything. It's just preparing for a game, preparing to go compete against somebody else, and seeing if your preparation paid off and you're influencing kids, and are they getting it, or are they getting better at what they're doing, and all those kind of things. I miss that part more than anything. I do not miss July practices when it's 110 out there and those kind of things. But my dad, my cousin, the fact I wanted to stay in sports of some kind. When I went to Oneida, I was an assistant football coach and head baseball coach. My first 2 years out of college was at Oneida. And we were successful in baseball. They'd only had a team for like 3 or 4 years and probably hadn't won 5 games in those 2 or 3 years before I got there. And the second year I was there, we won our district and got to come up to Johnson City and play in one of those minor league parks up there. I think the Cardinals play up there. Yeah. And played a region game up there. We got beat 2-1, but it was a great experience. And then I got the chance to go to Clinton. And the neatest part about Clinton was that Mike Overton, who snapped when I kicked, was at Clinton. Dale Snipeman, who punted after I left UT, was an assistant at Clinton. And then I was there. So there were 3 of us that had some ties from UT at that school. And we coached with Ron Brown, who was just an outstanding coach, high school coach. He'd been at Oliver Springs, came to Clinton, built that program up. We were really, really good most of the years that I was an assistant there. But Oak Ridge was always a little bit better, and then Central came along with Helton in them, and they were always really good. And so we were kind of third fiddle in that, second fiddle some, and then third fiddle when Central joined our district. But we were always very competitive. We go 9-1 and had to go to a bowl game because back then only one team would go.
Right.
And eventually I Coach Brown stepped down, and since we were successful, then they stayed within the staff and hired me as the head coach at Clinton. And that was like 1991. Mm-hmm. And I was head coach there for about 8 years before I decided to, and I coached girls softball at Clinton too, before I was the head coach. So I've coached all sorts of things, and girls and guys. And girls, we had a gathering a couple of years ago, and they, almost every one of them said, "Coach, you were really, really tough on us, but we appreciated it. And it took us a while to understand, but we know why you were." Because I remember to this day telling them that I am not a girls softball coach. I coach athletes, and so if you're thinking to be treated like girls, I'm not the person, and not going to probably do what you know. I'm probably going to screw up a little bit here as far as treating you as girls. But we were very competitive. We never had any pitching. It was fast pitch softball, but all they played was slow pitch there in Clinton, and so we were never. We went to the region a couple of times, but we were never great. But we were always real competitive, and it was fun, and it kept me involved in the spring. Because I've always played football and baseball. I've always been involved with all year long. Makes this year go by good. To me, it's fun to be in season all the time and not off season. Right. I never was a great, and Coach Quarles would tell you this. He'd amen it a lot of times. I was never very good in the off season, but I always felt like I made up for it during the season.
That's pretty funny.
So let me ask you this then. Obviously, you're probably leading into this, but being the head coach at Clinton, what made you make the move to go over to Maryville then? And obviously, you weren't the head coach, defensive coordinator, but what made you make that move? And kind of
there were two or three things.
Well, yeah, what went into the mindset of I guess some people would say taking a step down from a head coach to an assistant coach.
That's another long story, but I'll try to make it short.
We got time.
I was paid well at Clinton. Let's put it that way. Head coach was paid well, and we had a summer job that we got paid some too. All up front and legal and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get in trouble.
No pay to play? Right?
No, nothing like that. However, the assistant coaches were paid awful.
Okay. And
their salary did not change from 1970-something until I left. And me leaving probably is what caused it to change. Anyway, they just every year they put in for a raise. School board would put it in. Teacher union would be for it, and then they would say, "We got to cut 3 teachers or 2 teachers
to pay for it."
We're going to have to cut them. Well, as soon as they said we're going to have these issues money-wise, the first thing that was cut
was the pay.
Was any increase in coaching supplements, so that we wouldn't lose any more than a couple of teachers or whatever. So that happened. I'm telling you, it must have happened 10 times. Seemed like it happened 10. It might not have been that many, but it seemed like every year the same thing.
Right.
Well, we started getting a little momentum going toward getting it through. This was probably 1998 or 99. 98, yes. 97, 98, during that area. I'd been the head coach for like 7 years. Well, we were going to board meetings and showing, and parents were coming, and there was some support for it and all that kind of stuff, because we were now maybe at first one of the better paid assistants to the worst. Over, because you hadn't been, it hadn't changed in 20 years, 25 years. So we were going to all the board meetings. I can remember just like it was yesterday that it looked like we were going to get maybe half of what we'd asked for, and maybe the next year get another half, up to what we had asked for. One of the other coaches had put in this big plan about trying to get our assistant coaching rate pay up, and it was going to raise the head coach's pay as well. Anyway, I remember the superintendent. I remember leaving one of the board meetings where there was a lot of people there, and he came up to me and says, "This is going good. If you guys would just keep coming to these meetings, then I think we got a shot at getting these in." And I thought, I don't like coming to these meetings. I'm not here I was the least political person in the world as far as those kind of things. And so, I just told Kathy, I said, I don't want to spend my evenings going to, even if it was once a month. Right. And then you're still not assured that it was going to happen.
Right.
And so that wasn't the thing. That was kind of the starting point. I was playing in a Letterman golf tournament. I don't know if it was Willow Creek or someplace in Knoxville. And Dale Snipeman, who had coached with me at Clinton, was assistant principal at Maryville. We were playing together that day with a few other guys that I'd run around with in college or had met later. And we were after the round. I just said, this was in April. I just said to him, you ain't got any coach jobs over there at Maryville, do you? That was just out of the blue, not really serious. Coach Hammondtree had just went to Georgia. Coach Quarles had just got the head job at Maryville. I had been in the district meeting with Coach Quarles back like in January for scheduling and stuff. That's when I had met him. And we played Maryville. My best team in '92 beat Maryville in the first round of the playoffs. And then we were in their district, and we had lost to them a couple of times through my tenure at Clinton in the '90s, mid-'90s. Anyway, he said, well, actually, we do. We got a new head coach, and I knew that, but I didn't think. He said, Coach Hammondtree used to coach the defense, even though he was the head coach, and Coach Quarles still don't have a defensive coordinator. Well, now I'm the head coach at Clinton and the guy that calls all the offensive plays at Clinton. But I coached defense before I became an offensive guy at Clinton. I'd coached linebackers most of my early career. And he said, yeah, we actually have a defensive coordinator job open. But you're not serious, are you? And I said, well, yeah, maybe a little bit. And we kind of talked a little bit there, and he set up an interview with Coach Quarles. And the funny thing is, I had gotten hurt. This was in May. I think Maryville already had their spring practice. We were in the middle of ours at Clinton, and I was always the scout squad quarterback. And I had gotten hurt. I'd pulled something, and I couldn't even hardly walk when I went to the interview. They made fun of me. Chip Fuller and George met me, I think at Subs and Such is where we kind of had our first gathering. And they was having to help me out of my car. And I'm sure he thought, well, this is a great guy to have coaching with us. But anyway, the interview went well, and I got offered the job. And then in the meantime, they said they knew I had played baseball, I had coached some baseball and softball, girls softball. And they said, our baseball coach at Maryville is taking a year's leave of absence. Would you be interested in coming over there to do that? Well, my son, Johnny Mack, had played a lot of baseball and had decided he didn't want to play. And the reason was he was like me. He liked playing whatever sport it was. It was basketball. He wanted to play basketball in the winter, play baseball in the summer, and if he played football, it'd be in the fall. Well, he was on one of these travel teams that right in the middle of his middle school basketball, they wanted him to be at baseball practice. Well, that's just not the best situation for a 14-year-old, 12, 13, 14-year-old kid. And so he actually quit playing baseball. And so I had a little bit of incentive. Okay, if I go coach baseball, maybe I can get him back involved. Now, he was going into 8th grade when I came to Maryville. Right. And sure enough, when I took that job, it got him back interested in baseball, which I always thought that was his best sport anyway. Because he's kind of like me at basketball. He's like a bull in a china shop. Now, he played with great effort, but he couldn't shoot his way out of a paper sack. But anyway, so that kind of, there was a lot of things going on. I had rental property in Clinton that I was running, that I had owned, not big, just little, like duplex and stuff. And so it kind of all came together, the salaries, this opening, and I had a buyer for 2 of my rental properties. All happened within like a month. Wow. And so we was kind of feeling like this is meant to be. And kind of, things were happening was just kind of like, okay, there's some, the Lord's telling us maybe this is the best thing to do at this time. And we were good at Clinton. We were, I only had one losing team at Clinton. We had a bunch of kids hurt, and we almost beat Cleveland when they were on like their 50-something game winning streak. And then we beat Halls the last game of the year. We were 4-6 that year. We beat Halls the last game of the year and knocked them out of the playoffs. That was our worst team. The rest of them either were playoff teams. Sometimes we went further in the playoffs than others, but we were always playoff teams. So we didn't leave because we didn't think Clinton would be any good or anything like that. What I told you was kind of why. We just felt, my last year there, I told the coaches I would run the weight room. You guys would probably know that was probably, he did what? Because, it's pretty well known at Maryville that I'm not a weight room kind of guy. But I told the assistants, y'all have already earned more money. Y'all have worked harder than the money you've earned. Y'all go home, I'll run the weight room until spring practice. And it did take a toll on me, not the fact that I don't like weights, but just being in there every single day for 2 hours after school and those kind of things probably caused me to think, okay, there's probably something better out there, or let's try something new. Getting the head job at baseball-wise and being a defensive coordinator under a coach, Coach Quarles, that lets you do your job and not tell you what to do, made me feel like I was still kind of in charge of stuff. Obviously, the baseball, and then in football, once I earned his trust in what I was doing in my job, then we had separate meetings. But offense coaches went in this room, the defense coach went in this room. Coach Quarles would very seldom ask me. He obviously is a great coach, but he would very seldom question what we were doing. He might throw out some suggestions. And I know one thing I told him, I said, if you ever want me to quit, just make me run a 3-4 or a 3-3 stack, and you can let somebody else coach. We're running a 4-3, variations of that 4-3, and he never asked me to do any of those things, so I felt like I was doing okay. But to answer your question, I did not ever feel like, okay, I've got to be a head coach, because I actually was kind of a head coach.
So it's safe to say that this Maryville baseball coach that took a year of absence, he was Wally Pipp to your Lou Gehrig then, right? He never got his job back.
Well, that's another story. He actually got it back. They asked me, Stan, I don't know, y'all, Stan, I've lost his last name off the top of my head right now, was my assistant in baseball that year. And Coach Thompson, the athletic director, said the coach is wanting his job back. I said, well, we really had fun. We went to the region that year, my first year. Beat Carnes over there during the day. They let their whole school out to see the game, and we beat them. It was kind of fun.
That's cool.
We did that against Halls one other time, too. But anyway, the coach wanted his job back, but the principal never would give him the teaching job that he wanted. So before he ever came back, he gave it up again. So Coach Thompson came to Stan and I, because I thought Stan was like, he was just as much a head coach as I was, as far as I was concerned. And he had played at Central under Bud Bales and played some in the Philly organization. He was a great coach. And anyway, Coach Thompson came to us and we said, look, it can't be interim. It's got to be, 1 year interim and then having the rug pulled out from under you. I came into it knowing that. That was fine, but if I'm going to do it this year, then as long as we're doing okay, we'd like to keep that job. And so that's how I ended up being the coach there for 16 years in baseball.
16 years, yeah.
Okay, we want to end on. We're going to do a rapid fire segment, and just quick answers.
You know how old I am.
I know how old you are. I do realize that. That's what I was going to say. I knew you weren't a weight room guy because I've been inviting you to join me in the weight room for months now. You just won't join me.
But I'll go out to eat with you.
I know you will, and I appreciate that. And based on your love for going out to eat, some of these rapid fire questions involve that. So,
okay.
So go ahead. Okay. So savory or sweet?
Sweet.
Sweet. Okay.
All right. What is your favorite car of all time?
Car?
Car.
I am not a car guy. My
Okay.
Rogue I have right now.
Okay.
I mean, I could care less about cars.
Okay.
What's one person's poster or image that you had on your wall when you were in high school? Athlete.
How about college?
That's fine.
Farrah Fawcett.
Farrah Fawcett. All right. That's a good one. That's a good one.
All right. As a kicker, do you prefer to kick it deep or an onside kick?
Oh, deep.
Deep.
Through the end zone. Through the goalpost.
Through everything.
As a defensive coordinator, would you rather face a team that runs the ball extremely well or a team that throws the ball extremely well?
I would rather face somebody that runs it really well.
Okay. All right.
Who's your favorite kicker of all time?
Probably Mortensen from the Saints. Maybe because we went to his restaurant down there when we were at a Sugar Bowl.
There you go. That's fine.
And he was really, really good for a really, really
Yeah,
long
he
time.
played a long time.
What's one movie that you've seen that's made you cry with laughter?
Oh, well, I'm not a movie guy, so
Okay.
I'm going to pass on that.
Okay, that's fair enough.
If I think I answer later, I'll give it.
As a pitcher, 3-2 count or 1-1 count?
1-1.
1-1.
Free swinger, 3-2.
Okay.
Normally 1-1.
Get him to chase.
What's one person throughout history that you'd love to have lunch with if you could?
Jesus.
Okay,
Uh,
that's a good answer. You don't have to answer any more than that. That's the perfect answer.
I was also thinking about a coach, though.
All right, what's one coach then?
Probably Vince Lombardi. I've had lunch with Johnny Majors. He is a tremendous character. I mean, character, not. I mean,
Right.
he remembers stuff that just I don't understand how somebody as old as he does can remember everything. But I can walk up to him and he'll greet me by name and tell me about my long field goal at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
40 years later.
This one might lead into our final top 5 segment, but 2 days away from Thanksgiving when we're recording this, favorite Thanksgiving side dish?
Oh, side dish. It's turkey and dressing, period. And
Oh, okay.
side dish.
You got to eat something with it, though.
No.
You don't mess with any of the side dishes.
Well, yeah, but I'm dumpling. My cousin can cook dumplings really, really well.
Yeah,
And there's always dumplings there
Dumplings
for
is-
Christmas dinner.
Yeah, that's not a main course. That qualifies.
So I do dumplings.
Okay, final
Chicken
question.
and up.
Final question is: you've been to a lot of the Southeastern Conference cities. So what are your top 5 cities in the Southeastern Conference, not including Knoxville, that you like to eat at, that have the best restaurants, or the best restaurant that you may have been to?
That's a good one.
When I was in college, Georgia had a place called the Spaghetti House or the
I
Spaghetti
remember that
Factory or
place.
Spaghetti something.
The old spaghetti factory?
Yeah.
Maybe
Maybe. I've seen it, yeah.
that was up there really high. In Atlanta, we go to Papado's Seafood Kitchen.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with sports other than the first time we ever went there, UT was in the championship game back in the 90s. And I was just outside one day and I saw before the day or two before the game, and I said, any good place to eat around here? And they said, just go across the interstate. We was on one side of the interstate, go across. There's a seafood place over there called Papado's. And I almost planned my travels through to Florida through Papado's.
I was going to say you better plan some trips through there because you may not be going there for a while if you're going there for the SEC championship game.
You're real funny.
That was a low blow, right?
Well, I'll say I have Braves season tickets, so I still go
Okay,
there. all the
yeah,
time.
that works.
And I actually Ubered somebody to Atlanta about a month or two ago. And so I stopped at Papado's for lunch.
Okay.
One of my favorites is in Destin, which has nothing to do with football, with college cities or anything. A place called Louisiana something. Landon Coleman, who coached with me in baseball at Maryville, showed me about that place. And we'll be there probably here at the end of December when we stop by Destin on the way to South Florida. Nashville, the place we ate, I don't know if you guys ate there or not. I just lost the name of it. It's a spaghetti kind of place.
Remember?
Producer Nathan may have a suggestion.
No, I don't know the name of
He
it.
doesn't know the name.
No.
I don't think
I remember going there. I just don't remember the name of it.
it's not Nemo's, something like that.
I think they lose one
in
more.
Knoxville would be EO Steakhouse, which I think y'all visited.
Yes.
We did.
Yes.
That's where we go on our anniversary and Valentine's Day.
Yes. I have thoughts on the old steakhouse, but go ahead. Go ahead.
That's about it.
All right. Fair enough.
Big Ed's in Oak Ridge.
Yeah. Big Ed's is a good place. Well, we appreciate you taking time to spend a little time with us. I mean,
Yeah.
we learned a lot. I'm
This
sure
is
you
good.
enjoyed it.
This is
I
good.
I've
enjoyed it.
enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys
I
having
mean-
me on, and good luck to y'all in your
Well,
new endeavor.
we appreciate that, and I'm sure we'll be playing golf here again soon, and maybe you can give me some tips because I know you're a pretty good golfer. I've seen it firsthand. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Ralph.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
This was good.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we want to thank Coach Jim Gaylor, former defensive coordinator at Maryville, for joining us today. I want to thank my co-host, Joseph Miranda. And as always, we want to thank our sponsor, Bonus Room Art. You can go to www.bonusroomart.com, check out all their sports prints as well as movie prints. Great site, lots of great art. They do commission work as well, so make sure you check them out. And remember, as always, you can hear the Press Box podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast feed. You can also hear it on the Fox Sports Knoxville podcast feed, and you can follow them and us at Fox Sports Knox on the Twitter feed.